Hello, welcome back to Jay's Rock and Roll Stories. I'm your host Jay, and we're talking about part 3 of our Cream episode. This is part 3, and we said in part 2 they're breaking up. False alarm. Nope, the band is doing too good in the USA and doing too good financially to throw in the towel at this moment, for now. So Cream's original idea of just short blues numbers has transformed into long jazz rock oriented blues jams. That's pretty much what they're known for, really. And Clapton is sick of this because he wants to do these just straightforward blues songs, and he wants to get back to sort of like basics, and he finds inspiration in the band's album Music from Big Pink, with Robbie Robertson, Levon Helm, Rick Danko, Richard Manuel. So he doesn't want any extended solos. He wants more back to basics. On May 11th, 1968, in the magazine Rolling Stone, excuse me, a writer named John Landau, this is different John Landau, John Landau wrote the following. He says, "Cream has been called a jazz group. They are not. They are a blues band and a rock band. Clapton is a master of the blues cliches of all the post-World War II blues guitarists, particularly B.B. King and Albert King. Clapton's problem is that while he has a vast creative potential, at this time he hasn't begun to fulfill it. He is a virtuoso at performing other people's ideas." Ouch, that stings, doesn't it? Clapton reads this, he doesn't like it, and he called his manager and quits. He resigns. He's like, I'm done. Robert Stigwood, the manager, he proposed, okay, hold on, settle down. How about all three of you do solo set concerts? I'll give you like a little one for, and also let's do let's get together for some Cream shows as well. Ginger Baker, the drummer, he thought it was cool. Clapton and Bruce weren't so interested. But Robert Stigwood, he flies to New York and to arrange the final tour. The final, guys, I know we're going to quit, but one more tour, right? So Cream returns to the studio, to Atlantic Studios, in a space of a weekend. They did it in a weekend. And they completed material for the album Wheels of Fire, which was released June 14, 1968. It's a 2 LP record. One side is studio stuff, and the other side are live stuff. So the songs are, the takeaway ones. White Room, Crossroads. It goes to number 1 in Australia, number 1 in the US, and number 3 in the UK. And I have a copy of it. It's fantastic. There's a 16 live-minute version of Spoonful, a 16 live-minute version of Toad. At the same time, as Stigwood is trying to get this farewell gig going, Clapton is speaking to music critic and journalist, and Clapton says, here's a quote, "Cream are breaking up. The world-famous trio are to go separate ways in the autumn. I've been on the road 7 years, and I'm going on a big holiday. I went off on a lot of different things at once since Cream formed. I went off in a lot of different directions all at once, but I find I have floated back to what I like doing as an individual, and that is playing exploratory blues. You get really hung up and try to write pop songs or create a pop image. I went through that stage, and it was a shame because I was not being true to myself. And I am and always will be a blues guitarist." All right. So this is an interesting thing I read here. I read about the song White Room. In a white room with black curtains near the station. Okay, right? In a white room with black curtains near the station. This is written by Pete Brown, who was the lyricist for Jack Bruce. And Pete Brown knew of the immediacy that, like, we need songs, because they're going to be done after this tour. So he wrote White Room. It says he says it was a miracle it worked, considering it was me writing a monologue about a new flat. He was just sitting in his new apartment looking around and writing what he sees. All right, so the last commitment by Cream is a 4-week, 15 live performance in a 9-city tour. And it took place in the autumn of 1968. They would eventually gross $700,000. And on the 2nd of November, 22,000 people attended their concert at Madison Square Garden. And the final performance was on November 3rd. And Cream played White Room, Politician, I'm So Glad, Sitting on Top of the World, Sunshine of Your Love, Crossroads, Train Time, Toad, and Spoonful. At the end of the last song, the trio came forward, locked hands, waved to the audience, and then they left. And then back in the UK, 2 more concerts at the Albert Hall in London on November 26th of 1968. And that's it. Yes, Cream is dead and over. But what did Eric Clapton do after Cream? Well, George Harrison from the Beatles invited him September 6, 1968 to do the guitar solo on George's song, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And the reason why George brought Clapton in was because, well, I mean, if you've seen those documentaries, those Peter Jackson ones, you can kind of see how, and this is known even before this, that, John and Paul would always kind of pick on George. And George's idea was, well, if I bring in someone else, they'll have to be on good behavior. So he brought in Eric Clapton, and Paul and John have admiration and respect for Eric Clapton. And so everyone was on good behavior, and Eric Clapton was, just was there to do his job. And George told him, hey, tone it down on like the blues, but give me something special, And when you listen to that song, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, that guitar solo really stands out. Another thing Eric Clapton did was December 11, 1968, the Rolling Stones put on their Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus, which was under a big circus tent. It's going to be the Stones, the Who, Taj Mahal, Jethro Tull, and Marianne Faithfull, and also a little band put together, a little super group, where John Lennon would sing, Eric Clapton would play guitar, Keith Richards would play bass, and Mitch Mitchell on drums. And the title of this little supergroup was called the Dirty Mac, and they do the song Your Blues. So that Rock and Roll Circus was never released until 1996. So if you've never heard of it, look that up on YouTube. It's pretty cool. Okay, so more post-career Cream. There was a time when the 3 guys got back together, and they all met up at Eric Clapton's apartment in 1976. Pattie Boyd, his girlfriend and soon-to-be wife, was there, and she took a couple Polaroids. I'll post these pictures. They're fun to look at. So the 3 guys, they're on a couch. So the story is that they all did acid, and they're just hanging out, goofing off together, sitting on this couch. And I guess, people in the neighborhood were like, hey, Cream is here. Let's go check him out. So they're sitting on this couch, welcoming people in. And Clapton said that, it was like court. We're sitting on this couch like us kings, and welcome. Come on in. Come, say hello. I'll put those pictures up. It's kind of cool. It didn't, materialize into a musical, formation. It was just them hanging out, goofing off. Here's a musical situation here. This is 1979. Clapton and Patty Boyd finally get married, and at the wedding celebration and Clapton's, mansion home in England, they put together a little impromptu jam, right? So it's going to be playing guitar, playing bass, playing drums. So Clapton's on guitar, Mick Jagger's there, Keith Richards, Bill Wyman, Paul McCartney's there, George Harrison is there, Ringo Starr is there, Jeff Beck is there, Jack Bruce is there. Here's from that friend of Clapton, Ben Palmer. He says that, okay, so a little jam started in Clapton's lawn. They had a little stage, right? And at some point, it was like Jack Bruce, like everyone's playing, they're having a good time, we're having a little rock and roll jam in my front yard, whatever. And they decided Jack Bruce is taking this really seriously. And a conscious effort began, encouraged by Clapton, to isolate him. So Jack Bruce is he's jamming, he's really in the zone, he's in the groove, he's got his eye closed playing bass. And Eric Clapton is kind of looking at people that, hey, look at Jack. This guy's taking it. He's trying really hard. So Clapton has everyone just set their guitars down, set their instruments down, and they just left while Jack is still jamming. It was so messed up, right? So Jack stops, look around. It's only him playing, and Eric Clapton starts laughing his ass off. And then Jack Bruce came off the stage crying, sobbing with rage, but so messed up, right? 1987, Clapton plays on two songs on Jack Bruce's album, Willpower. So they fuck with each other like these kind of things, and they get back together musically. 1990, Ginger Baker joins Jack Bruce on tour for that same album. And in an interview of the magazine You magazine, both of the musicians, Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker, gave their side to the story, right? Finally, we can hear some truth, right? Because we're all convinced this is Eric Clapton's band. So Ginger Baker says, this is a 1990 magazine interview, he says, the majority of the world is convinced that Cream was Eric Clapton's band and he enjoys it. Cream was my band. I formed it. I did most of the hard work, and I got the least out of it. And I hate the shit Clapton does now. That's hilarious. Jack Bruce, he says he was a little humbler than Ginger Baker, but he says, I was interested in the music, but Clapton was always very ambitious, very intent on becoming a big star. He and Robert Stigwood joined together to push himself the star of Cream. They had a problem because I was the lead singer and I wrote most of the songs. They went ahead and did it anyway. 1993, Clapton quotes to Rolling Stone magazine on the idea of a Cream reunion. Okay, so Clapton says, 93, it's still possible as long as we're all alive, but it hinges on how much people change and how much they don't change. If we got back together, how far back would it go into the misery of what we experienced? Would that come back with it? It scares the living daylights out of me because there was a lot of hostility, a lot of aggression, a lot of unpleasant personality clashes, and we would have to do it for love, and have a good time, not for money. Okay, January 12, 1993, the three of them perform Cream, doing Sunshine of Your Love, Politician, a bunch of other songs, and it was, Jack Bruce says it was wonderful. This was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Let's see. Finally, the Mighty Cream, they met for one more reunion, and it's recorded and documented. You can see it on YouTube. It's the final concert, October 26, 2005, at Madison Square Garden. It's a big set list. They do the entire almost like their entire repertoire. They encore with Sunshine of Your Love, and it went over really well. This was the Madison Square Garden concert, and the final opinions was Clapton said it was triumphant. The shows in May were triumphant. They were great, but the October shows were a disappointment, pale shadow as the old monster crept in. So it talks about how that first show, that Madison Square Garden one, was great. But then they went back to England and did, I think, 2 more. And it just, the hatred just snuck right back in. So Jack Bruce says, well, Jack Bruce was recovering from a major liver transplant, and he felt the concerts were positive. He felt the band played together. He said they played better than they were in the 60s, and it was they had a greater respect for each other. It was a meaningful experience for him. Ginger Baker, on the other hand, says he felt there were certain moments that were mounting and magical. But there was the underlying tension, toxic dynamic with Jack Bruce that quickly returned, preventing any kind of permanent or broader continuation of the band. So we can't win anymore. So that's it. They did their last one, the Madison Square Garden one. That was great, and they documented that. They made a documentary about it, and you can check that out. And that's it. That is the story of Cream, and we're ending here now. So, thank you for listening to this episode. We'll talk more about Clapton later because I want to talk about when he was with the Derek and the Dominoes, that kind of thing. So if you like this episode, you like this podcast, check out. I post stuff on the Instagram, Facebook, whatever. If you want to contact the show, you can reach us at jaysrockandrollstories@gmail.com. All right, rock and roll. See you next time.